You can alter the character of a fabric in different ways so that it will work for your piece. One of the easiest ways is to turn fabric over to lighten it, which is what I'm doing here. This is commonly done in watercolor quilting. So you can do that to make the reflection in the water lighter by turning the fabric over. And it would give you a mirror of the pattern if you were using a commercial quilting fabric. I've ordered one of these and I'll show that in the next video. You can also alter a fabric with paint or ink. You can paint, sponge, potato stamp, stencil, any of those techniques you may have tried in home dec over the years. I'm planning to use paint or ink to add a lot of branches before thread painting on my pieces. You could potato stamp flowers into a meadow. I'm not necessarily recommending you actually use a potato, but you could, because we wash this kind of raw edge applique. So why not use a potato or a little piece of packing foam that you cut to be your stamp? You can alter fabric by re-dyeing it or over-dyeing it. I'd love to do a course on dyeing because it's very rewarding and all you do is set it up properly. The key is that dye colors move at different speeds through your bath. If you don't stir too much, that's how you get that awesome variegation. The old less is more. We can also alter fiber with markers. On fabrics, we need a plan for fixing the ink. We should always test our process on a fabric scrap, the same fabric that's in the quilt. Markers tend to bleed in a way that can look unrefined. Of course, we always want what we're doing to look good for what we're going for. My work is a little bit cartoony. I think Dr. Seuss or Van Gogh rather than Michelangelo or Rembrandt or whatever. So assuming we found our fabrics and laid out our piece, which we'll do in the next video, what techniques will we use to construct our piece? The reality is we're all going to bring different skill sets to this project. I just want to run through some options here and get you thinking about your project. Of course, the most important technique we have is free motion quilting, as well as its close cousins, thread painting and thread sketching. Notably, all of these can affect your stitch density, and so we'll look at these as part of a stitch density test. Another thing we can do, we can couch with fancy threads, boucle, eyelash, or other yarns. I used to couch a lot. I've gotten out of the habit, but it can add a lot of interest to a piece. Another favorite technique I forget to use is bobbin drawing. I apologize that this demonstration is using a size 18 leather needle, but you can achieve really nice effects. We can satin stitch. I don't extensively satin stitch to outline items in my quilts, but I love to do it for certain things, like around the center of a floral quilt, as sort of like, the way lilies drop their pollen. Sometimes I run variegated satin stitching up and down tree trunks to add another layer to the visual, as in this piece called Mad World, inspired by Adam Lambert's idol performance of the old Tears for Fears classic. We can sew on beads, which I love that quiet time sewing beads on a quilt at the very end. Beading can really take a piece to the next level. Not that I didn't already like this one, but the beading adds a richness to the detail. I always use strong nylon thread. This one was a lot of fun. Do you love embroidery or rickrack? We can add buttons. Buttons can be really fun and whimsical, and I think it's appropriate for a landscape quilt if you want to add buttons for some reason. On my first After White Sulfur, I sewed on these. I call them fabric packets. I don't know if there's a name for something like these little squares. I sewed each one with a button, and at the time I'd been given someone's grandmother's buttons. There are some awesome buttons on this quilt. It lives, I believe, in Anaconda, Montana. It was sort of a whimsical thing. The same quilt had tumbling chicks as one of the midground fabrics. I still love these tumbling chicks. If I could get more of them, I would put them on everything, for better or worse. There's so many other things you can do. Some things you do can contort your quilt sandwich to the point that you don't like it anymore. Thanks!